Let me tell you something right off the bat. I never thought my first week back home would start with a woman in a fake police vest, screaming at me on my own front porch, waving around paperwork like she was the Queen of England, and I was some peasant squatting on her land. I'm standing there, coffee half raised in boots, still dusty from the drive, looking at this woman who'd introduced herself as Molin Pierce, HOA chairwoman, self-appointed enforcer of all things community, hands shaking with pure, barely contained rage. I mean, you ever have someone act like they own your family's property, and everyone just kind of lets them? That's how this all started. 3 weeks after my Uncle Nathan died, the man who raised me every summer, I came home to a place that was supposed to be my peace, and instead I got a front row seat to the most bizarre, hostile takeover you can imagine. See, the thing about coming home, you remember every sound, every smell. The creek behind the old cabin, the oak with the rope swing Uncle Nate put up when I was 8, Mrs. Patterson baking cookies with her window open. I wanted that feeling again, that safety. But what I pulled into wasn't home. It was some kind of federal sting operation. 3 big black SUVs, amber strobes flashing, guys moving around with walkie-talkies, stringing up caution tape like my uncle's cabin was a crime scene. There's this guy, Derek, moving with this military precision radio crackling. It didn't look like a code violation. It looked like a raid. Then comes Molin striding out of her SUV like she runs the FBI, hair pulled so tight it could snap steel clipboard ready like it's a sidearm. This property has been flagged for immediate safety inspection, she announces, citing code violations and environmental hazards. Derek's setting up a whole mobile command center, radio base, folding table, the works. I'm just standing there dumbfounded, watching the place I inherited from my uncle get turned into a theater for this woman's power trip. What really threw me was how much Molin knew repairs Uncle Nathan had made details about his basement workshop stuff you couldn't know unless you'd been inside or had a private detective following him. That was his sanctuary. She rattles off violations, waves official-looking papers under my nose, county letterhead, legal codes, the whole performance. Only something's off. Her lines are too smooth, too rehearsed, and Derek's vest says community safety, but there's not a single real badge in sight. Then I hear Derek on the radio, base target engaged subject, compliant timeline accelerated, Uncle Nathan's files secured. Files timeline. Who's planning what here? The next morning, a thick packet gets slid under my door. 3 pages of violations. Photos taken from inside the house, a 30-day compliance deadline, or else the county seizes my property. The pressure is unreal. $47,000 in emergency remediation, or I lose everything my uncle ever worked for. Now let me tell you, I'm not the kind of guy who folds under pressure. So I go down to the county office, no record of any real HOA charter, no official inspections filed, nothing. I call Molin and she goes from sugar sweet to ice cold real quick. "You're making serious accusations, Mr. Phillips," she says like she's warning me off. That's when I start digging into Uncle Nathan's things and find his neighborhood watch folder. This isn't just a scrapbook. It's a dossier, photos, license plates, records of fake inspections, receipts for community improvements nobody ever saw. And right there, a business card, Riverside Development Corporation meeting scheduled for the week after Nathan died, never attended. On the back, in my uncle's scrawl, property acquisition timeline. Community destabilization phase. Legal pressure points. Yeah, my stomach dropped. Uncle Nathan's notes lay it out. Clear original land grants, historical lines. Proof the entire neighborhood sat on family property. His last line, Brandon owns more than he knows. Deed research incomplete property extends to... And then the page is torn off. Deliberate. Like someone didn't want me to see the end of that story. Suddenly, orange survey stakes start popping up around my yard tags reading property assessment, development planning, and Derek in his vest blocks my driveway. "Please limit access during evaluation," he says like he's guarding the White House. Feels like a crime scene. But what's the crime exactly? That's when Sandra Williams, my neighbor, pulls me aside. She's shaking, says she's been tracking neighborhood finances for Molin, feeding her resident income data, property values, mortgage info, thinking she's helping. Turns out she's been unwittingly building Molin's extortion playbook. Sandra's guilt is written all over her, tears in her eyes, as she realizes she handed over the keys to the kingdom, and not just for herself. It gets worse. Sandra reveals Uncle Nathan had her look into property records. He'd found discrepancies in deeds, proof that almost everyone here only owned the house, not the land that was still my family's going back to the 1800s. Suddenly it's clear this wasn't just about running me off, it was about grabbing the land under the whole neighborhood. I call Jake Miller, my old buddy from college, now a deputy sheriff. Jake, check out Molin Pierce, Derek Morrison, and Riverside Development, I tell him. Jake gets back to me with gold. Derek has an assault conviction, lost his security license, no legal authority, just a pawn for Molin. Molin herself has a history of getting fired for exceeding authority at every management job she's ever had. Riverside Development, brand new, gobbling up properties countywide for some big mixed-use project. And if they could get my 137 acres, they'd own everything. Derek faced with the truth cracks. He was homeless. Molin took him in, promised him importance, then used him to scare people. The control she has over him is chilling. She makes me feel like I matter, he admits, torn up about what he's done. But then while we're talking, we see surveyors, private contractors, not county, marking boundaries for the next stage of this scheme. And then comes the twist, Derek shows me. Encrypted text between Molin and Riverside Development talking about community transition planned right after Uncle Nathan's death, timelines for acquisition payouts for Molin. This was all coordinated, planned out for a year. They never expected me to inherit so cleanly. The plan was to use probate delays to swoop in. Instead, they had to go with intimidation. With Derek's help, I finally have what I need. I call a community meeting and lay it all out, survey maps, development plans, Derek's confessions, the whole scam. Molin stands in front of everyone, desperate to hang on. But the evidence is there. You've all been living on my inherited land, and she's been conspiring to force you out for developer money. Silence. You could hear a pin drop. Faces turn white as folks realize their homes sit on ground they don't own. Molin loses it, mask completely off, screaming about how they need her leadership, how she built this place, how everyone's ungrateful. Her meltdown is nuclear, the room frozen, watching her unravel. And then Mrs. Patterson, the old lady who once gave me cookies, stands up and says, "Molin, dear, we never asked you for anything. We just wanted to live peacefully." It hits harder than any yelling. Molin can't take it. She rants on about her sacrifices, accidentally blurts out how she convinced Uncle Nathan otherwise before he died. It's a confession, and the deputies waiting outside don't miss it. Molin gets hauled off fraud, extortion, conspiracy, illegal surveillance, and now Uncle Nathan's death gets reinvestigated. Derek cooperates, gets probation, and tries to make it right with the people he once scared. Sandra, racked with guilt, helps families understand their rights for real this time. In the end, the victory isn't just in sending Molin to prison, it's watching a scared, divided neighborhood come together for real organizing, negotiating fair leases, turning a scam into a real transparent association where no one's left in the dark. Property values go up, not down, once people know where they stand. And you know what? Sometimes the right thing to do isn't written in any deed, it's just standing up and saying no more. So let me ask you, what would you do if you found out you owned the land under your whole neighborhood? Would you kick everyone out or help them build something real? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about what justice actually means. And if you ever tangled with a fake authority or a real-life Karen, share your story. This is how we keep the truth alive.